There's a particular term I'm looking for.
Um,
Conflict of interest. Yes, that's the term I'm looking for. Yeah, where essentially you have, or potentially could have, a president-elect who has sworn allegiance to another country, because the process of obtaining citizenship of another country swearing allegiance to another country, which is why it's stated in, I believe, Section 138 of the Nigerian Constitution that certain elective positions in Nigeria, like the president, um, are the people who are allowed to run for that office are either people who have no other citizenship but Nigerian citizenship, or if they are dual citizens, they had to have been born in the country of their other citizenship. So what that means is that if you were born in Nigeria, you're a Nigerian citizen, but then you naturalized in another country, you obtained the citizenship of another country, you are precluded. Now, there's a whole legal argument going on there about, yeah, okay, yes, the Constitution says this, but we don't necessarily go by what the Constitution says. We go by legal precedents, by case law precedents. And apparently, there's case law precedents stating that, well, the fact of being a Nigerian citizen in itself might supersede the fact of having obtained citizenship elsewhere. So that's one issue. But the second, and in my opinion, the most important issue here is that on the INEC EC9 declaration, which is a sworn affidavit, so everything you write is basically is stated on that oath. On that INEC EC9 form, there's a question that asks, have you ever obtained citizenship of another country? It's a very simple question. Have you acquired citizenship of another country? Yes or no. You tick boxes, yes or no. You can see this form on the screen, and he clearly ticked no. He has not acquired citizenship of another country. But here is prima facie evidence that he in fact did acquire citizenship of another country, and fairly recently as well, which is lying on your oath, which is perjury. Perjury under the Nigerian constitution is punishable with 14 years in prison. It's a very serious criminal offense. So that's one thing. And then the wider issue surrounding perjury on Bola Tinubu's INEC EC9 declaration goes back to a story that I published in November last year, published on my platform West Africa Weekly. That's westafricaweekly.substack.com, and the story was called "Has Bola Tinubu committed perjury?" The evidence says yes. Um, to be honest, I'm a bit surprised that it seems as if that story is only now coming into sort of public consciousness. It's coming to prominence now because that story is about 6 months old. I thought everyone had read it at the time. Apparently, I was wrong about. Apparently, most people actually hadn't even heard of it. There are several instances of perjury which were outlined in that story. At the time when I wrote that story, I actually had this passport, but for the reasons I mentioned earlier, I wasn't actually able to include it in the story, to put it out because of the source. But there were other things that were mentioned. So, for example, the um, the university that Bola Tinubu claims to have attended, which is Chicago State University, was subpoenaed. Right, a subpoena is a legal document which is issued under the authority of a court, which compels the recipient to release all information regarding the subject that is quoted on the subpoena. So basically, subpoenaed Chicago State University, Richard J. Daley College, which was then known as Southwest College, Deloitte, where he once claims to have started his career as an accountant, Anderson Tax, where he also claims to have worked previously. Subpoenas were sent out to all these organizations to basically verify the claims made on his INEC EC9 declaration and claims he had made elsewhere at other points in time on other INEC forms and in public spaces. And the information that came back in response to the subpoena from Chicago State University showed that the transcript from Southwest College, which was used by a certain Bola A. Tinubu to gain admission to Chicago State University, was issued to a person who was female. The gender of the applicant is printed there very clearly, F, female. And clearly, we also know that the person we know now as Nigeria's president-elect is clearly is not a transgender. Because one of my if this person to Chicago State University was female, that person called Bola A. Tinubu, and then this person called Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a man, then that would imply that they are not in fact the same person. And if he claims to be that person who was admitted to Chicago State University and who was awarded a degree from Chicago State University in 1979, that would then imply that identity theft took place. Now, the identity theft is an issue on its own, but what I'm more interested in here is the perjury which committed on the INEC AC9 declaration. Because bear in mind, that's what this is really about. It's not really about the fact that a criminal has done criminal things, but it's about the fact that a criminal is trying to become the previous president. Right? That's what I think the issue here is. Now, on that INEC AC9 declaration as well, the university certificates which is submitted to INEC, purportedly from Chicago State University, we sent out the subpoena to Chicago State University, and then they sent a direct reprint of the actual certificate issued in 1979 to Bola A. Tinubu. And that certificate and the certificate which he submitted to INEC are two completely different documents. Completely different. The outline of the document is different. The dates in the documents are different. The format is different. The font is different. The university logo is different. The people who signed on the certificate are different. Signatures are different. The number of signatures is different. And then there are grammatical errors on the certificate which is submitted to INEC. And then worst of all, really cursory, really low-level internet research. You can't get investigation. Just basically Google search using just like a basic. If you literally Google fake Chicago State University, I guarantee you on the first page of Google, you will see a result which links to a website called diplomamakers.com. That is diploma-makers.com. And if you follow that link and go to the entry for a fake Chicago State University certificate templates, that document and the document he submitted to INEC are the same thing. So it's the same layout, it's the same font, it's the same logo, it's the same everything, and even the same grammatical errors on that template. What turned up in the supposed certificate that he submitted to INEC, which is a completely different document from that which we received from Chicago State University. It shows that this person not only committed forgery, but also submitted a forgery to INEC on his EC9 declaration, which is also perjury. And there were many other instances of perjury that were also covered in that story. If anyone hasn't read it, I would recommend reading it. Again, the headline of the story is "Has Tinubu committed perjury?" The evidence says yes. So just Google and you'll see this. It's pretty self-explanatory.
All right. Thank you so much for that explanation. Now, how do you explain the fact that all these stories, and this did not start today, started when he was governor, and they've been continuously building on what we've been saying, that they've not seemed to have stopped him? What is going on? You didn't mention the issue of the age also, which is we've seen so many
So
conflicting. Go ahead.
yes, yes. So there was also that the certificates, oh, sorry, not the certificate, the documents that were received from Chicago State University, the date of birth there, and then the date of birth on his INEC EC9 declaration, there's a 2 year discrepancy. So the INEC EC9, I think, date of birth is 1952, and then on this one, 1954. What explains that explanation? And then on the on also on the Chicago's the from college into Chicago University claims that the person gaining admission apparently attended Government College Lagos and graduated in 1970. And it just so happens that Government College Lagos, which is located in Surulere, commenced operations in 1974. So someone couldn't have graduated in 1970 because the school didn't exist, right? And this is easily verifiable. So,
And
in answer to your question, which is,
go ahead.
sorry, should I go on?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. There's a
So
delay, but go ahead.
I was saying, in in answer to your question, which was, what do I think has happened? I think first of all, this has been a very huge failure of journalism. Obviously, it has been a failure of the the electoral system, of INEC, of the system, the judicial system. Yes, we know all those things. But I think first, a major failure of journalism. And why I say it's a failure of journalism is that a lot of these things weren't even that difficult to get hold of. They weren't even that hard to find. Um, I gained some sort of personal interest in the backstory of Tinubu maybe a little over a year ago, and in just under a year, I've been able to get to this point. I don't believe that somebody who has had these kinds of scandals in his past, going back 30 plus years, I don't believe that there's any excuse for why the entirety of Nigerian media, for whatever reason, over all these decades, hasn't been able to pin him down. This man has been a two-term governor. This man has been a senator as well, which is always easy to forget. He was a senator in the Third Republic. He has been a frontline member of the ruling party for the past 8 years now. He's a political godfather, a very well connected operator. And somehow or the other, even though a lot of things have been hidden in plain sight, for whatever reason, be it that parts of the media are completely beholden to him because obviously he spends a lot of money on keeping editors and journalists on his side. But be that as it may, I know it's not everyone, even he can afford to pay off. So there's really no excuse or the explanation that account for why after all this time it's only now in 2023 that we're getting to find out all of this information, a lot of which has been publicly available for decades. Now, maybe in this, because this information was only obtainable via a subpoena, so maybe there was a little bit of difficulty involved. But the thing is, just me at my little level, I mean, I run a little Substack publication, right? I was collaborating with a lawyer who actually did a lot of the heavy lifting, right? But even at that low level, I was able to get hold of this stuff. There are much larger newsrooms in Nigeria. There are newsrooms in Nigeria that have existed since before I was born. And these people have resources, they have money, they have access, they have to get hold of all of this stuff. And nothing has been done. There's no fluff that isn't reported as news in Nigeria. There's no press release that isn't reported as news in Nigeria. But actual stories like this have completely fallen through the cracks first year. So I think first and foremost, it's a huge failure of journalism and it's an indictment serious as there ever can be on this. And then obviously it's failure of the Nigerian system because sorry, go ahead.
I wanted to say that we're having breaks difficulty hearing you. There are breaks in your voice. I think maybe is the connection to the earpiece. Maybe can you take it out and see if it's better. Constantly we get breaks when you speak. Um, yeah, please, and see if
Yeah,
that will.
better.
Okay, say something. Let me see.
Okay, let's
Okay, that's yeah, that's better. Let's try
typing
it.
something. One,
Yeah.
two. Oh, okay, okay.
All
Sorry.
right. Okay. So thank you so much.
So
So now, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
okay.
Go ahead.
The final thing I was going to mention was that this failure of the Nigerian system itself, because I was having a conversation with a lawyer yesterday, and he made me understand that under the Electoral Amendment Act of 2022, well, this started in 2022. It was actually the previous Electoral Amendment Act of 20 that this started being the case. But apparently, INEC does not have the power to vet candidates. So essentially, what that means, if you are submitting an EC9 declaration to INEC to run for president, if you take a pile of leaves from your backyard and you submit that to INEC with your EC9 declaration, and you claim that this pile of leaves is your university certificate, INEC does not have the power to reject it and say, no, this is not a certificate. Because for the fact that you are submitting it with a sworn affidavit, INEC has to take what you say. So, in my opinion, makes absolutely no sense. You are pinky swearing, right? And INEC has no power to vet you whatsoever, none whatsoever. So I thought that is definitely an issue that needs to be looked at because the Electoral Amendment Act obviously has to be amended once again. Because INEC definitely needs to have some sort of discretionary power. Now, it was also mentioned that INEC has abused the power before when it have this power. So obviously, there's some kind of solution needs to be found because I understand taking away the power from INEC because it's abused it. On the other hand, you can't have a situation where an actual real life criminal has been able to submit false information, clearly and obviously, blatantly, brazenly false information to INEC. And INEC simply doesn't have the power to say anything. INEC can't do anything. According to the Electoral Amendment Act of 2022, you and I, ordinary Nigerians, no longer have power to take Bola Tinubu or any of the presidential candidates to court. As you submitted a fake document or you are not qualified to be president, and I'm taking you to court for that. We no longer have that power. We used to have that power under the previous electoral act. That taken away from us. And now the only people who have that power are the people who
Presidential
competed
candidate.
against the candidates during primary elections, and then the other candidates who competed with them during the actual election. So you and I essentially have had one of our most important powers as citizens basically taken away from us in a legislative coup, which was led by Femi Gbajabiamila. So clearly, there was a legislative failure or a legislative that took place that have made all of this possible as well. And then finally, the judicial system. I think this is also an indictment, a heavy indictment on the judicial system, because this is actually not the first time that Tinubu has been taken to court for perjury. And I believe he was taken to court in 2001, or was it 2000, by the late Gani Fawemi SAN. And what was pled in court was that apparently, since Tinubu had been sworn in as governor at that time, apparently he had immunity. He could be sued. He couldn't get into court because he had legal immunity as governor. And then to sort of formalize that 419 that took place, there was now a um, Senate hearing, or is it House of Reps hearing, and then he was exonerated by a panel of politicians. I mean, these are not lawyers, not judges, it's not a jury, it's a panel of politicians who said one of their own, and then they were all rewarded handsomely for that. And then he has been able to go around for years since then, saying that, hey, even if you want to bring this up against me, people have brought it up before, and look, I was exonerated. They found no wrongdoing, without mentioning that who exonerated you. Was it the court? Was it the judge? No, it was the criminals like you that exonerated you. You understand? So that's what I mean when I say judicial failure here as well, because I don't believe that in certain instances there should the immunity clause should apply. In certain instances, I believe, and this is the else even in places like the US, it is also the case that the immunity clause is not absolute. Not absolute. There are exceptions. There are not many, but there are exceptions to the immunity clause. Nigeria, as if the immunity clause is absolute and universal. So once I'm sworn in as a governor or as a president, I am legally and officially above all kinds of law enforcement of all kinds of legality. I think that's definitely legislative and judicial failure that needs to be looked into as well.